We are all isolated. From the moment we are born, we are bound in a blanket of solitude. America herself was born into a world of isolation. When George Washington gave his farewell address in 1796, he urged the nation to refrain from foreign entanglements. Following this precedent, the United States eschewed from foreign alliances, only participating in international trade and commerce. Likewise, as teenagers, we are isolated in society. No longer children, but not yet adults, we are trapped in an in-between stage and itching to get out. No one really understands us, for we aren't considered children anymore, but still aren't allowed to do adult things. We are trapped in an abyss of teenage angst and hormones. Likewise, Holden is trapped too. He's trapped in his own mind, sick of all the phonies. And he is also trapped at Pensy Prep.
America began to break away from this policy of isolationism in the early 20th century. Following the concept of international Darwinism, the U.S. shifted some of its focus from domestic affairs to international affairs in order to compete in the global economy. On May 7, 1915, the sinking of the Lusitania by German submarine warfare further pushed America away from isolationism due to the death of 128 Americans. The neutrality of the U.S. was once again put to the test when the Zimmerman telegram was decoded by Britain. Germany proposed an alliance with Mexico, promising them that they would reclaim the Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona territories in exchange for their support. These events led to America's need to free the country from isolationism and break out into the world. In our lives, this desire to break free heightens, reaching its max during early teenage years. Teenagers are invited to the mall or a last-minute party and want to drive where they want, when they want, avoiding the awkwardness of being dropped off by a parent. They long for the day when a busy parent doesn't mean being forced to deny an invitation. The same desire for freedom is found within Holden. During his education at Pensy, he chooses to rebel against the mold of the perfect student, never applying himself in his work. He allows his grades to suffer and fall to a failing level.
When America abandoned the policy of isolationism, she broke free from her bonds and began to feel freedom. On April 2, 1917, America officially entered World War I and broke away from the foreign policy of isolationism forever. This is the moment when America officially became free and started to interact with countries around the globe. America entering the First World War can be related to a teenager getting her driver's license for the very first time. When the teenager first gets her license, she is able to interact with people without having the burden of not being able to drive anywhere. She is able to feel the freedom of driving anywhere, anytime, without asking her parents to take her places. Likewise, in The Catcher in the Rye, Holden becomes free when he gets kicked out of Pensy Prep. He is able to leave the school filled with conformity and go into the real world. These three turning points in the lifespan of America, the average teenager, and Holden Caulfield, are all the moments when each become free.
The 20s were a time of dramatic social and political change in America. For the first time, more Americans lived in cities than on farms. Economically, people were very well off and businesses boomed. Thanks to advertising, a new consumer economy was forming that allowed for the creation of many new businesses and jobs. There were so many new inventions, such as the freezer, washing machine, telephone, and car, that gave Americans a new freedom. Just like all of the new things that America can do with its new wealth and freedom, a teenager has so much more that they are able to do once they can drive. There are so many new places a teenager can go once they have their license, such as the movies, the mall, Dunkin' Donuts, friends' houses, and even school. Now that the teenager no longer needs to rely on her parents to get places, she has so much more freedom. Holden's first taste of freedom is when he's on the train. He has no parents, teachers, or friends telling him what to do, and he has the freedom to do or go anywhere he wants. With all this newfound freedom, you're surely going to test the boundaries. The new consumer goods that gave Americans so much freedom were often bought on credit, so that they could simply be paid back later. But buying on credit was a dangerous habit. Bootlegging was another way that America tried to push the boundaries. Despite prohibition laws, bootleggers illegally sold alcohol to Americans so they could have a good time and get rich. As a new driver on the road, there are rules that you must follow. You can't drive past 9, but teenagers always push it. 9:30, it's okay. 10, it'll be fine. 11, they won't catch me. Speed limits are to be followed as well, but it's okay to go 5, 10, 15 over if you're in a hurry. Besides, teenagers never get caught. Holden pushes his new freedom in the city as well. Holden goes to a hotel where he could just have stayed the night, but instead he agrees to have a stripper come to his room. Holden may not have done anything with the stripper, but by just having there, he was pushing his luck. Holden also does some drinking with his new freedom, which can only bring bad things. All of these things that America, the teenager, and Holden are doing have not brought consequences yet, but there are dark clouds looming in the near future.
There comes a time when you cross the line between riding on the wild side and going crazy. On October 28, 1929, America crossed that line. After years of buying stock on margin, Wall Street finally crashed. It was the epitome of years of America living lavishly and carelessly, buying goods without having the means to pay for them. As a result, we landed in the Great Depression, where unemployment rose to a striking 25%. People lost their life savings, their houses, everything. America crashed hard. As careless teenagers, we crash hard too. Hey, as teens, we live the dream. We feel reckless, like nothing can bring us down. But one day, we drive a little too fast, stay out a little late, and it all comes toppling down. They say to pretend to cry when you get pulled over. Let me tell you, the tears will come on their own. There is no need to pretend. No one, especially teenagers, can get around the law, just like no one can live in a house of cards forever. Holden hit his breaking point when he is wandering around the city. He becomes overwhelmed with his perception of society and the lack of childlike innocence he so desires. It all bottles up inside Holden, and he reaches his mental breaking point and faints.
Eventually, one finds the balance between careless freedom and responsibility. America discovered this happy medium by implementing public works programs during the Great Depression that helped rebuild the economy. Organizations, including the Civilian Conservation Corps, built public works projects such as the Hoover Dam to create jobs for needy Americans. The Federal Deposit Insurance Company was formed to protect Americans' money in the banks, attempting to prevent another Great Depression. Teenagers also need to find the balance in their lives by learning how to follow the rules and not take advantage of the freedom. For example, knowing when to go with the flow of traffic, follow the speed limit, or run a yellow light. Learning responsibility is the key to growing up. Holden comes of age by realizing that moving west isn't realistic and instead returns home with Phoebe. Furthermore, he realizes that one can't preserve innocence, being the catcher in the rye forever.
Coming of age is when you realize your freedom comes with responsibilities, and if you take advantage of it, you have consequences.